The storm came without warning. Rain like nails hammered the valley, loosening the soil around the mountain's edge. When the earth finally gave way, it revealed something that had been buried for centuries. A blackened spire, jutting from the ground like the finger of a corpse. By dawn, the villagers gathered in silence. Beneath the mud and broken roots, they found stone, carved, ancient, and impossibly cold to the touch. It wasn't a church they knew, but it wanted to be one. A team of archaeologists was called. They descended into the ruins with lanterns and cameras, their light barely piercing the choking darkness below. Inside, the air felt thick, like it had been waiting to be breathed again after hundreds of years. At the heart of the underground chapel stood 13 altars, each sealed with slabs of iron engraved in a language that no one could recognize. Symbols twisted like serpents eating their own tails, words that changed shape when looked at too long. When they touched the first altar, the lights flickered. Someone whispered, "Did you hear that?" The recorders caught it, a low, trembling hum, almost human. It wasn't the echo of their voices. It was something deeper, something breathing. That night, as the team camped near the excavation site, they heard faint chanting rising from the pit. Soft at first, then clearer, then undeniable. 13 voices, whispering in perfect unison. When the archaeologists unearthed the first chamber, they thought it was merely an ancient shrine, a circular hall carved from black stone, its walls covered in symbols that resembled open mouths. But then came the sound. It began as a low hum, so faint it could be mistaken for wind. Yet there was no wind that deep underground. Dr. Imani pressed her ear to the wall and froze. The vibration wasn't random. It was rhythmic, almost breathing. That night, the team set up camp near the site. The air grew colder, and the candles flickered though the air was still. Then, at exactly 3:13 a.m., the hum became a whisper. A voice, ancient, layered, and impossibly vast, seeped through the rock. It didn't speak words at first, only sound that felt alive. Then, slowly, they began to take shape. One mouth opens 12 away. Dr. Imani jolted awake, her ears ringing, her nose bleeding. The others hadn't heard it, or perhaps they pretended not to, but she knew the truth. Something beneath the earth had spoken, and it wanted to be heard again. When they opened the second chamber, the air felt thick, as if it carried the weight of centuries of prayers that were never meant to be heard. The walls were carved with figures, hundreds of them, their mouths wide open, their faces frozen in silent screams. But when the team shone their lights closer, they realized these weren't carvings. They were bodies, mummified, kneeling in a perfect circle. Their throats were slit, their tongues missing. Dr. Imani's assistant, Malik, dropped his light and stumbled back. They're arranged like a choir, he whispered. And indeed, at the center of them was an altar of obsidian, shaped like an organ's pipes, though it was made of bone. As the team documented the scene, a faint vibration trembled through the air, so low it made their teeth ache. The sound rose slowly, forming a harmony without voices, a choir without breath. One by one, the mummified mouths began to move. No sound escaped, yet the vibration grew unbearable. The recording equipment spiked. The readings went mad. Malik clutched his head and screamed that he could hear them in his skull. Then the power went out, and in the total darkness, a whisper passed through the hall. The second mouth has opened. The choir remembers. When the lights flickered back, Malik was gone. Only his flashlight remained, still on, resting before the altar, pointing into the dark mouth of a tunnel that hadn't been there before. The tunnel descended deep beneath the ruins, its walls slick with something that shimmered like black oil. The deeper they went, the more the stones seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in slow rhythm, like the lungs of something alive. At the end of the tunnel, They found a door made entirely of human jawbones. It opened on its own. Inside was a circular chamber lined with tattered scrolls and ancient pages, all glued to the walls of what looked disturbingly like dried blood. The symbols on them pulsed faintly in the dim light, as if ink was something still alive. Dr. Imani stepped closer, trembling. This is older than any religion," she whispered, "older than speech itself." The words twisted as she looked at them. They seemed to rearrange under her gaze, aligning into a pattern her mind didn't want to understand. Yet she did. The moment she blinked, the writing was suddenly carved into her skin. Faint, glowing red, crawling up her arms like a curse. Her assistant gasped, "Doctor, your hands." Then the whispers returned, thousands of overlapping voices, speaking in a tongue that didn't belong in this world. The walls bled. The parchment peeled itself loose and began to float, spiraling around them, wrapping the room in living text. From the center of the swirling storm of scripture, a single phrase burned into the air, bright as fire, cold as death. The third mouth speaks. And then silence. The pages fell. Dr. Imani collapsed, whispering the words she couldn't unsee. The unholy scripture had written her now. The old church bell had not rung in centuries, yet that night its sound echoed to the valley, deep, resonant, and wrong. It didn't sound metallic. It sounded alive. Inside the chapel, the candles burned with black flame. Each flicker hummed a note, low, mournful, and oddly melodic. Together, they formed a song that had no beginning or end. Dr. Imani stood before the altar, her hands trembling. On the stone lay a single page, torn from the unholy scripture she had found. Across it was written, "Sing the 13th Psalm and be devoured in grace." The others in the room, archaeologists, priests, and the last of her team, began to murmur as the walls started to thrum. The air thickened, pulsing in rhythm with the impossible melody. One by one they began to sing, not willingly. Their mouths moved without command, their throats vibrating with alien syllables. The psalm wasn't human. It wasn't even meant for ears. It bent the air, tore at the senses, and scraped the edges of sanity. Their voices fused into one enormous sound, a choir that shook dust from the rafters and made the crucifix above the altar turn upside down. The floor cracked. From the fissure rose a black wind, cold and wet, carrying whispers that sounded like the echo of a god dying. Then the candles went out. In the dark, something sang back, deeper, hungrier. The 13th Psalm had been answered. When the light returned, the pews were empty. Only Dr. Imani remained, on her knees, humming the melody under her breath, eyes wide and empty. And carved into the altar in something still dripping was a new line of scripture. The fifth mouth has sung. The chapel was silent now, too silent. The echoes of the 13th Psalm still lingered in the air, vibrating faintly like the aftermath of thunder. Dr. Imani stood alone, her body trembling, her lips still twitching with the remnants of that forbidden him. Outside, the sky had turned the color of dry blood. The moon, if it was a moon, hung too close, its surface pulsing as though alive. From its light, shadows poured instead of illumination. At the center of the chapel, the stone altar had changed. It was no longer just rock. It breathed. The veins beneath its surface throbbed, faintly glowing red, and the grooves that once held candle wax now overflowed with something thicker. Blood, not from the living, but from somewhere else, old blood, ancient, humming with a consciousness that watched. Dr. Imani stumbled backward as the walls began to whisper again, voices emerging from cracks. The sixth mouth opens a covenant must be sealed. Her body wasn't her own anymore. Her hands moved, guided by something unseen. She reached for the dagger beside the altar, a relic carved from bone and metal fused by heat no earthly fire could produce. The whispers grew louder. They spoke not to her ears, but directly into her mind in 1,000 voices that bled together. One must give for all to hear. Her eyes fell upon a remaining member of her team, Father Lucan, bound in horror, tears cutting to the dirt on his face. Imani, stop. This isn't you. But she was already moving. Her hand didn't shake when she lifted the blade. The god beneath the chapel hungered, and she had become its chosen voice. The first cut wasn't deep. A crimson bead slid down his chest and struck the altar. The stone hissed. The second cut drew a scream, and the chapel shuddered, as though awakening from slumber. And with the third, the air turned black, the altar drank, the walls wept, and the floor split wide open, revealing an endless chasm lined with teeth the size of tombstones. Blood poured down into the abyss, and something moved far below, something vast, breathing, singing without sound. Dr. Imani dropped the blade. The whispers quieted. Then a new voice spoke from the dark beneath her. You fed me well. The seventh mouth shall soon speak. The altar sealed itself. The blood vanished. And Imani, trembling, broken, yet strangely calm, whispered into the emptiness. Then let the world hear you. The world above the chapel was gone. Only the deep red sky remained, split by veins of black lightning that pulsed in rhythm with something breathing beneath the earth. Dr. Imani stood before the altar. Though it no longer resembled an altar, it had become flesh, stretched and alive, moving with a steady pulse, a heart too large to exist in this world. The stone walls around her melted into a writhing mass of tendrils, eyes forming, watching, blinking in slow, wet unison. And then a sound, not a scream, not a song, something deeper, something that shook the bones of the world. It began as a tremor beneath her feet, then grew into a vibration that filled the air, pressing against her skull until blood trickled from her ears. The 13th mouth was waking. The bodies of her colleagues, those who had not fled or died, began to rise, pulled upright by invisible strings. Their eyes rolled back, their jaws opened wide, impossibly wide, until the skin at their cheeks split. From their throats came a hum, low and unified, like a choir of the damned. The god wakes. The flesh remembers. The void opens. Dr. Imani tried to step back, but her feet were sinking. The floor had become liquid, thick as blood, warm as breath. Hands reached from beneath, pulling her down. In the center of the chapel, the altar split open, and from within emerged a single colossal eye. It blinked once, and with that blink the room vanished. She stood now in a sea of nothing, endless red fog stretching to infinity, the ruins of cities floating upside down above her. Mountains drifted like corpses, rivers flowed in reverse, and above it all hung 13 vast, circular mouths in the sky, each whispering in a voice that bent reality. Feed, speak, awaken. Imani screamed, but her voice was not her own. The god had taken it. Her scream became a hymn, her words no longer human, a language that made the air bleed and the light die. The mouths began to open wider, the void trembling as if space itself recoiled in terror. From each one, shapes began to descend, creatures made of shadow and memory, their bodies twisting in impossible geometry. The 13th has opened. One voice echoed from the abyss. The silence will follow. Dr. Imani fell to her knees as the last of her sanity slipped away. She saw the truth. The world was not built for gods awake. And as she stared into the endless maw, the last thing she heard was her own voice whispering, though she had not spoken. I am the mouth. I am the voice. I am the awakening. The earth shuddered once more, and the god began to breathe. The world had no sun now, only the light that wasn't light at all. It began as a faint shimmer above the ruins of the chapel. where the 13th mouth had torn through the veil. The shimmer spread like wildfire, swallowing the sky, burning with a pale brilliance that did not cast shadows. It erased them. Dr. Imani stood amidst the ruin, her eyes hollow, her voice gone. The light spilled across her face like molten glass, burning, but she did not move. Around her, the others stood too, lifeless yet awake, their faces turned upward toward the trembling sky. The light grew stronger. It hummed. It fed. The air itself began to collapse under its pressure. The trees turned to ash before the flames even touched them. Birds fell mid-flight, their bodies dissolving before hitting the ground. The rivers boiled away into steam that glowed faintly gold, rising in spirals toward the mouth of heaven itself. But it was not heaven. It was a devourer's light. From above, the mouth spoke, 13 voices, woven into one impossible harmony, the sound of creation reversing itself. The light consumes the shadow. The word consumes the flesh. The end is a beginning. The words weren't heard so much as felt, deep inside the bones, in the back of the skull, in the cracks of time. Every syllable carried weight, and the weight crushed everything that existed. Dr. Imani looked down at her hands, or what was left of them. The skin had begun to glow from within, as though her veins were filled with liquid fire. The light inside her pulsed in rhythm with the voices above, burning her, reshaping her. She realized then, the devourer's light wasn't killing. It was transforming. All around her, the dead began to move again. Their bodies cracked open, light spilling out, their faces twisted in rapture. They rose, not as humans, not as corpses, but as vessels. The choir began again, a low hum, a melody too perfect to exist. Each note peeled the world further apart. The ocean rose in walls of glowing water, folding over the land like a divine hand. Cities vanished beneath waves of brilliance. Skies tore open, revealing a second sun, an eye, vast and radiant, staring down with hunger older than time. Dr. Imani screamed, or tried to. No sound came out, only light. She fell to her knees, her body splitting into glowing cracks, her soul melting into the air. Her mind was no longer her own. She saw through the devourer's gaze, saw the galaxies burning, the stars flickering out one by one, the silence swallowing everything. And as the light devoured her completely, she heard the final whisper from above. The mouth has spoken. The light remembers. The void has no end. The world turned white. And then there was nothing. There was no day, no night, only the endless hum of a world that had been consumed. Dr. Imani awoke to silence, a silence that pulsed, as though the air itself had a heartbeat. She was lying in what once was a chapel, though its walls now curved outward into infinity, black stone melting into something that was alive. The ground throbbed beneath her palms. The air shimmered with the remnants of the devouring light, faint now, as if it had eaten everything it could. And then she saw it, the 13th mouth. It hung above her, suspended in the void where the roof once was, larger than the horizon, rimmed with light and shadow. Its teeth were mountains, its tongue a black sea. Each breath it took bent reality, pulling fragments of existence inward, fragments of souls, memories, prayers, time itself. It was beautiful, terrible, holy. The other 12 mouths hovered around it, smaller, whispering in languages that made her ears bleed. Their words formed a single command that rippled through her mind. Come forth. She couldn't resist. Her body moved on its own, staggering forward, feet sinking into the quivering floor. The air thickened with whispers, millions of voices, pleading, chanting, singing. And in that sound, she recognized them, her team, the dead, the lost, Every life ever swallowed by the earth. They were all inside the mouth. The 13th mouth opened wider, and the universe trembled. From its depths came a light not meant for human eyes, a light that spoke, not with words, but with understanding. It told her truths she couldn't contain, that the gods had never left, that they had been waiting beneath the layers of creation, dreaming in hunger, that humanity's prayers were never unanswered, merely digested. She screamed as the knowledge flooded her. Her skin cracked, her bones rang like bells, her mind melted into pure sound. She saw herself from outside, a fragment of light spiraling into the vast dark throat of the 13th mouth. And for one fleeting second before she vanished, she understood. The 13th mouth wasn't the end of the world. It was the beginning of another, a world without flesh, without silence, without death, only hunger. As she was devoured, the mouth spoke once more, its voice rippling across the ruins of creation. All things must return. All prayers must be eaten. I am the 13th mouth, and I remember every voice. Then, as if satisfied, the mouth closed, the hum ceased, the light dimmed, and the universe exhaled into blackness. There was no sound, no motion, only the faint echo of a heartbeat deep within the void, as if something new had just begun to breathe.